Well, it's time now for Clarion Connection here on this Wednesday, or for those who are listening on Sunday here on Radio 13 and C93 FM with Ron Wilshire. Good morning, Ron.
Morning. It's nice to know that we can give people a chance of, deciding which day they want it to be.
Yeah, and of course, if you're listening online, then it's really whatever day you want it to be.
Yeah, so, radio is powerful. So, my guest today is Ann Stearns of the Caregivers Support Group in Clarion. She helped start the group to reach those who are caring for a child with a severe disability or a young husband with a debilitating disease, not just those caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's, and many other groups fall into this arrangement. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
And do you want to go into a little bit more about how you started the group and why?
How I started? Yes, we started about a year ago. We went to Reverend Larson of the First United Methodist Church and said we felt a need for support for caregivers. We were getting a lot of support, medical support, social services support for people with diseases or disabilities, but the caregivers were not necessarily being helped. And he suggested that we develop a steering committee. So we have 9 people on the steering committee. We developed goals and objectives for the group, and we've been meeting once a month ever since at the First United Methodist Church in Clarion. It's a non-denominational group, and I want to clear up a misconception right away, and that is it's not for professional caregivers. It's not for nurses and social workers and those who are paid caregivers, but rather for family members or friends or neighbors who have the responsibility of caring for someone.
And what types of illnesses or situations are the caregivers involved with?
Well, this is a generic caregiving kind of thing rather than disease-specific. In other words, it's not for just Alzheimer's patients or for people with MS, but rather for anyone who's caring for a loved one or neighbor. For example, there are people who have children with disabilities, and that becomes almost a lifetime caregiving situation. There are people who are caring for young spouses. One that I can think of is an Iraqi war veteran who came home and developed MS. A young man in his 40s, but developed MS. So there are a number of different kinds of caregiving situations that we try to reach rather than make it just specific to one.
How do you help the caregivers?
Well, we help, I think, by providing a safe environment for people to come and talk. We emphasize the fact that it is confidential, that what is said in that group stays in that group and does not go out in the community, so that they feel that they can come and if they need to vent emotions that they feel about caregiving. There are a lot of emotions that go with caregiving, such as guilt or anger or depression or frustration, and some of these folks just need a safe place to go to talk.
So it's kind of therapy for them.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Well, the statistics for the number of people providing care in this country are pretty amazing.
They are. The ones that I have show 65 million Americans are caregivers. And of that, the one that I think is most interesting right now for me has been the fact that there are 1.4 million children ages 8 to 18 who are caregivers. And I don't think we think about that very often, but a 14-year-old who's caring for a mother that has congestive heart failure, or a mother who has breast cancer and is dying. And we don't think about these young people who are at the same time trying to go to school and take care of a parent or a grandparent.
That's an interesting point, because I think the challenges or emotions with being a caregiver would probably vary by age. For instance, you mentioned the Iraqi war vet. If there's a young family involved or parents involved, different caregivers have different reactions.
Oh, definitely. I think some of the frustration comes with careers being interrupted, somebody having to give up a career to stay home and take care of somebody, a youngster having to drop out of school to take care of somebody, a husband and wife who've planned for retirement and they think they're going to travel and they don't get to travel anymore because one of them is impaired in some fashion. So there's a lot of disruption of dreams and family plans when you have a situation with a caregiver.
You had mentioned earlier before the interview about the stages of that someone might go through as a caregiver in dealing with these, emergency type situations.
Well, I always think of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Stages of Grief, which was very famous a number of years ago. Everybody talked about these stages of grief, and it went from denial to anger to acceptance. But it was like a ladder. It just went lockstep through these stages. And a number of years ago, I found a graphic that I thought really portrayed it better, which was cyclical, in that you start off and maybe there's some depression with the diagnosis, and then you get some help, and so things look better. And then you have this disruption of the family, and you have anger or frustration. But then things get a little bit better, and there's some new dreams formulated, and you have new hopes for this person, and then somebody rains on your parade again, and you have a further diagnosis or further obstacles. And so there's more of the anxiety or depression. So I tend to think, when we see with caregivers, that they have very good days and very bad days. And it just isn't a single lockstep fashion to proceed from denial to acceptance.
So it's a lot more complicated than the food chain or Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a continual process.
Yes.
And that's probably where the support group might help people deal with the changes. And, you would need to continue to go to the caregivers group, I think, to help respond to grief and the changes that they face day to day.
I think you need to keep going and keep talking, because it does change. And we've seen that even as people come and they tell their stories. They'll start out and they're very depressed about a situation, and then they'll say, but the other day he did such and such, and it was a really good day. So they need that release and that outlet.
Now, even though you meet in the Methodist Church, and Daryl Larson's been very accommodating, this isn't really church related.
It is not, and I want people to understand that it is open to the public and also free, incidentally, even though it's, as you said, therapy for people. It doesn't cost anything.
Well, that's a real bargain, because even seeking professional help with
That's true.
So it's how many people do you have helping you with this?
I have 9 people on the steering committee, and interestingly enough, they were all selected for not only their interest in this group, but the fact that each of them has at some point in their lives been a caregiver.
Oh, so they...
Including myself.
Oh, okay. How long have you been a caregiver? Or
51 years.
Oh, 51 years. Oh, my. That has a special... we're hearing sounds in the radio here that they're adjusting to, not just a response to that answer, but so you're well aware of the challenges and emotions that go through.
Yes, I am.
Well, how do you get through the day then? With this.
I have good days and bad days, and I have the help of friends. I do have people to talk to, and I think that's really important. And my faith is great, and that is a help.
When this first faced you, was there any help available back then, 50 some years ago?
Not really. My daughter was diagnosed when she was 3, and we had a round of doctors who didn't know or didn't say or whatever what was wrong and how we could approach it. And I was a very young mother with an only child, first child, and people would say, "Oh, she'll grow out of it," or or "It's just you, mother, because it's your first child." So it was a very difficult time, and she wasn't really diagnosed properly until she was 8. And then we began to get some help for her, but there was still no schooling for her in those days. And so I wound up having to start a school to provide services for her and for other children in the area that were excluded from public school classes at the time. Now, of course, it's a different thing, and people have many, many services through the public schools.
Right. So, so the work with the Caregiver Support Group is more for the actual caregiver in dealing with this, with their particular situation.
Right.
And what, without betraying any confidences or something, what types of things come up at the meetings?
I think frustration, a feeling of isolation is really prevalent. Like, I'm in this all by myself and I'm stuck in the house and you know, I'm losing friends because I can't go out and be involved with other people. So there's a lot of feeling of isolation and a need to talk. I can remember one lady who came and just kept saying, "It's so wonderful to be able to talk to somebody about this." So,
is guilt ever a factor in?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What have I done wrong? If I had done something differently, would it have made a difference? Guilt is, and I think that's particularly true where, in my case, with a mother with a child. Could I have done something differently?
Well, how would the group address something like that? You know, to help them resolve the guilt issues.
Well, I think that the group addresses it by offering some of their own stories, because, as I say, each member of this group has been a caregiver at some time in their lives, and so they'll chime in and say, "Well, I remember feeling such and such and so, and it helps then the person who's attending to realize that A, they're not alone, and B, other people have gone through similar experiences.
Well, say someone finds or develops that they have to be a caregiver. How do you learn what to do? I mean, what resources are available? And I know it changes with each situation and that, but there are things probably that you never think about before you're thrust into that situation.
That's true, and I would say trial and error would be the way you learn for the most part. Fortunately, we do have so many more services today than we had, say, 50 years ago for people that are dealing with Alzheimer's, for instance, the Agency on Aging has all kinds of support available. The Visiting Nurses Association provides support. Professional counselors, people who are now in the helping professions that were scarce before are now plentiful. So there's a much greater support network for caregivers today in terms of the professional services than we had a number of years ago.
Is there any fear that with the tightening budgets and that some of these services might not be available in the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because sometimes that one of the areas that might seem easiest to cut.
It is easiest to cut. That and services to youth are always easy to cut. And without going into Obamacare and all of that argument, I think people are afraid that they're going to lose medical help. So
that's I guess that's a fear of everybody at some point, whether you're in the caregivers group but it's very real, and maybe we need a healthcare support group. So you probably get a lot of people signing up for that. But you're listening to Clarion Connection on WWCH and C93. We're going to take a brief commercial break.
The Shippenville Elk Volunteer Fire Department is hosting their annual Father's Day Chicken Barbecue on Sunday, June 16th. Sales start at 11 a.m. with a limited number of dinners, so get Dad there early. Dinners include half a barbecue chicken, potato salad, baked beans, roll, and a beverage. Eat-in or take-out dinners are available. Don't miss the 50-50 raffle and fire truck tours for the kids. Food and fun for the whole family. This Father's Day, Sunday, June 16th at the Shippenville Elk Volunteer Fire Department.
Welcome back to Clarion Connection. I'm Ron Wilshire. My guest today is Ann Stearns from the Clarion Area Caregivers Support Group. And we were talking about what people need to know about caregiving. And you did show me a large book that's provided about finding your way.
Yes, this is an interesting book that supposedly answers 250 real-life questions about caregiving, and it's about 2 inches thick. It's a huge book. It covers every aspect of caregiving, and it is available through the Agency for Aging. We have been able to distribute it to members who come to the support group, and we still have plenty in our stockpile. We'll be taking some of them Friday to the Senior Expo also.
Oh, great. And that's published by the state and written by a former Secretary of Aging, Linda Rhodes. So, and good thing is it's in big print. There's a lot of pages, but it's well laid out and very consumer friendly.
It's talking about different aspects, medical aspects, how you get through life, how you explain things to people, how you change your lifestyle, navigating legal and money matters. So it really covers a variety of topics.
So there are a lot of things to consider there. You had mentioned before about neighbors taking care of neighbors as some of the caregivers. How frequent is that?
More frequent than you would imagine. We had a situation where we were in Virginia last week and looking at houses, and somebody said, "Oh, these people have been caring for a woman with Alzheimer's, and they have the key if you would like to look at her house." Well, here were 2 neighbors side by side of a single woman who had Alzheimer's, and it had finally advanced to the point where her family had come for her and taken her out of state. But these 2 neighbors, for no recompense whatsoever, had been watching out for this lady.
We were talking in the first section about the types of support the Caregiver Support Group provides, and you had this great list of tasks and activities listed that kind of allow people to take a mini vacation to get away from some of the stuff. And I guess the list was by Susan Rose Blonner, and it's from a book of How I Stayed Alive When My Brain Was Trying to Kill Me. But the activities there are something anybody could use, or just when they're in a pressure situation. And
we try to encourage people to take care of themselves. They come to the support group with concerns about their loved one and how to do this and that for their loved one, and then we say to them, "And what are you doing for yourself?" And they will frequently admit they're not doing anything for themselves. And so I copied this list for them and have given it to each person that has come and said, just, go out and throw rocks in the woods, or go out and watch birds at the window, or take a bubble bath, or send somebody flowers, or read a good poem, or just take these mini breaks and do something for yourself, just for yourself, not for your care recipient. And it breaks that tension and helps.
So you have to take care of yourself if you're going to take care of somebody else.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there are lots of different things on that list. Probably want to share some of them. Make a card for someone. Do a jigsaw or crossword puzzle. That'll divert your attention. Draw, paint, or color. Do yoga or gentle stretching. Watch an uplifting or funny video. Write in your journal. Give yourself a facial. Scream into a pillow. That probably takes place sometimes. Yeah, I mean, and it'd probably be a natural reaction. Go to a support meeting. Again, throw rocks into the woods. Don't throw them at anybody. Right. Okay. Have a cup of tea. Clean out the part of the refrigerator. I don't know, but that seems like a lot of work there. Wrap yourself in a blanket and read. Read inspirational books or magazine. That helps people become more positive.
Absolutely. They take that break from this constant concentration on the care recipient and think about what helps them and breaks that tension.
How often does this group meet?
We just meet once a month. We have thought that we would meet more often if people needed it, but we haven't really felt that need so far. But we meet on the second Sunday of every month at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And we are hoping that time is a good time because there should be fewer conflicts with other organizations and with work. We tried to figure out how we were going to meet and include people who have full-time jobs. And we also didn't want to meet at night because people not wanting to drive at night. So we picked the 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon time. Seems to be pretty good.
Do a lot of caregivers have full-time jobs?
Yes.
So it makes an even more stressful situation.
It does.
And are employers supportive of their situation?
Some employers are. Some have been mandated by family leave policies to be considerate, but others do take into consideration the needs of the caregiver and the care recipient. But it's mostly a 9-to-5 or job that you have very few breaks and you have to work around that job in order to do your caregiving. And that makes it hard. My father lived with me for 6.5 years before he finally went to a nursing home. And his favorite time to wake up and do something was 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was very difficult when I had to get up at 5:30 to go to work. But we filled that time with television and popcorn. We used to watch old John Wayne movies and pop popcorn, and then he would go to sleep, and I would go back, get up at 5:30 and go to work.
Well, that brings out an interesting point because there's a lot of people in, if it's not even that type of care, but in a situation where they're working and they have kids on the one end and then parents or older people on the other end, so it makes a double
sandwich generation.
A sandwich generation. And there seems to be more and more of that going on too.
That's probably really the hardest job for a caregiver, is when you are part of that sandwich generation and have to take care of young children at the same time you're taking care of some older recipient.
You were telling me too before the show about a woman in one of the caregiver groups, or someone that you may have known, about the one thing that she wanted. I thought that was kind of dramatic. If you'd like to share that.
This was when I was teaching, and I was teaching about parents and children with disabilities, and this woman raised her hand and she said, "There's just one thing that I would like." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "A good night's sleep." And I didn't understand the response. And I said to her, "Why?" And she said, "Because I have to get up twice during the night to turn my daughter." Her daughter was 17 years old. That woman had been doing that, not for the normal 6 weeks that we have to give to a newborn baby when we lose sleep, but 17 years of getting up twice a night.
So what would you tell her? Well, how would someone help her out?
Well, there is no answer unless there's another family member who could share in that and maybe take one of those 2 times. But this was a child with cerebral palsy who had to be turned because she had no movement of her own and would develop bed sores if she weren't turned. So it would have to be, either a paid caregiver coming in, which would be difficult in the middle of the night, or some other family member. And
so if anyone's interested in joining the Caregivers Support Group or would need more information, is there also a telephone number to call?
Yes, the number is 297-2050. It's my phone, so call me and I can give you some more information. Also, any of you who are going to the Senior Expo at Zion Church on Friday, we'll have 3 Caregivers Support Steering Committee members there, and we'll have some brochures to distribute and be able to answer questions.
Now, on the monthly meetings, if someone can just walk in there, right? Or
yes.
You don't need a reservation?
You don't need a reservation. You just come to the church, and we usually have people stationed outside because the church is under renovation. We never know which room we're meeting in, but we have someone to greet you, and you just come.
They did a nice job in the renovation.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
That was very practical. Now, it is located at the Methodist Church, and it doesn't matter denomination or anything, but it would seem that some kind of faith would be very important in dealing, with these situations.
Well, I personally feel it's essential. It has certainly helped me.
But it just with grasping with the situation, and it doesn't necessarily mean any specific religion or even a religion, but you have to have some kind of faith to help you guide
That's
yourself
true.
through it.
That's true.
So what have you been pleased with the reaction to the group that you've formed?
I have been. I think we're filling a need. I hope we are in this community.
Well, thank you for your efforts there, and I'm sure the people of the Clarion County area thank you too.
Well, thank you for this opportunity.
You're listening to Clarion Connection. I'm Ron Wilshire, talking with Ann Stearns from the Clarion Caregivers Support Group.